Welcome to The Explainer. I am incredibly excited you're here today because we're diving into a framework that is going to completely change how you view your own judgment, your arguments, and honestly, your day-to-day interactions. We're looking at the concepts of a self-described life methodologist, someone who literally studies the nuts and bolts of how we think and judge. So get ready because how you see the world is about to be seriously challenged. Okay, let's dive right into this. Do you see the world as it truly is? Well, I'm going to go ahead and immediately shatter your confidence here. The author's fundamental premise is that from the exact millisecond we perceive something, we become imperfect. We literally never see reality in its pure, unfiltered state. Instead, we're seeing everything through this highly filtered lens of our past experiences, our learned concepts, and our memories. And because of that filtered lens, there is always, and I mean always, a gap between the reality we perceive and the reality that actually exists out there. The author calls this core concept discrepancy. And no, unfortunately, it's not some bug in the system you can just patch. Understanding that this inevitable gap exists is absolutely crucial if we want to design a better life and avoid a ton of unnecessary conflict. Section 1. Two illusions inside me. Inside and outside discrepancies. And this brilliantly illustrates the two major cognitive traps we fall into. Let's think about an apple. You've probably eaten hundreds of apples in your life, so when you encounter a new one, your brain just instantly assumes, oh, I know exactly what this tastes like. But that specific apple sitting in front of you is totally unique. It had different soil, a different tree, a different level of ripeness. You're confusing similarity with exact identity. That right there is inside discrepancy. Now contrast that with the swan, which represents outside discrepancy. If you have literally never seen a swan before, you don't even have the concept of it in your head. You could look right at one and fail to accurately perceive it. It's the classic danger of the unknown unknown. So how do we combat that first illusion, the inside discrepancy? The author gives us a really practical tool here. You just have to hit pause and ask yourself, is what I knew in the past really the same as the current situation? By forcing yourself to ask that specific question, you actively stop your brain's lazy habit of just assuming the present is identical to the past. You stop confusing similar things with identical things. And then, to tackle that second illusion, the outside discrepancy, you have to ask, what might I be missing right now? The author really stresses that true epistemological humility means actively factoring in the possibility of the unknown. It doesn't mean being timid. It actually means being highly accurate. You are actively trying to calculate for those blind spots you don't even realize you have. Section 2. When illusions collide, the danger of interdiscrepancy. To really ground this abstract theory, let's look at a super relatable workplace scenario. Picture a tense Monday morning at the office. The boss is just glaring at their team member, thinking with absolute 100% certainty this employee is completely irresponsible. They are viewing the entire situation through their own limited lens, totally subjected to their own inside and outside discrepancies. But at the exact same time, the employee is staring right back at the boss. And through their own completely different set of past experiences and blind spots, the employee is thinking, this boss is treating me so unfairly. Boom, right there we have a massive collision of perspectives. So who is exactly right here? Well, our natural human instinct is to immediately pick a side, right? But the author points out that assuming one person must be entirely wrong and the other entirely right is a fatal mistake. Both the boss and the employee have major, critical limits to their perception, which brings us to interdiscrepancy. When two imperfect perception systems interact, the problems don't just add up together, they amplify each other. And here's a totally fascinating point from the text. Trying to understand people is actually way harder than trying to understand physical reality. Why? Because unlike that apple, which just sits there on the table, people judge you back. They react to your flawed perception with their own flawed perception, and it just creates this runaway feedback loop of amplified misunderstanding. Section 3. The paradox. Doubt yourself first. So the crucial point here is that doubting yourself is actually an incredibly empowering tool for accuracy. It is not a sign of weakness at all. It doesn't mean self-deprecation, and it absolutely doesn't mean you just assume you're the sole cause of all the workplace drama. Instead, it's a strategic move. You absolutely have to remove your own perception errors first. It's like, only by clearing all the smudges off your own glasses can you accurately see where the other person is actually making a mistake. Section 4. 3 questions. SOP, the practical life methodology. When a negative judgment arises, you run it through this simple 3-step SOP framework. First, subject. You examine yourself, the I making the judgment. Second, object. You examine the other person involved. And third, purpose. You ruthlessly examine the underlying motive for why you're judging them in the first place. Let's move to and see how this builds. Step 1. You interrogate the subject, which is you. Before you snap at your coworker, ask yourself, is this just my current emotion talking? Is some bad past experience coloring my view right now? Is my ego just bruised? Am I looking at pure facts or just my heavily filtered interpretation of those facts? You are aggressively checking your own internal discrepancies here. Okay, so once you've cleared yourself, you move to step 2, the object. Notice the major shift in the questions here. You have to treat your judgment of that other person as nothing more than a hypothesis. You ask, is the information I have actually sufficient? Are there alternative explanations for their behavior? Is there some crucial context I just don't know yet? You're basically keeping your own blind spots front and center before cementing your opinion of them. Finally, step 3, the purpose. And honestly, this might be the hardest one to face. You really have to verify if your underlying purpose and self-interest are secretly distorting your judgment. Ask yourself, why am I making this negative judgment out loud? Am I really trying to solve a problem and protect the team here? Or am I just angry? Am I just trying to exert control over this person? If your purpose is selfish, well, your judgment is probably compromised. After running through that whole SOP framework, you reach a decision point. If your reliability is insufficient, meaning you found way too many of your own errors or blind spots, you just have to reserve your judgment and ask more questions. But if, after some really rigorous self-doubt, your reliability is sufficient, then you raise rational issues. See, this process isn't about blind forgiveness or being a total pushover. It is about knowing exactly when you are finally ready to make a highly rational, constructive critique. Section 5. True Humility and Life Design. Redefining how we live. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it completely reframes a concept we've heard our whole lives. Humility is not a personality trait. It is a methodology for reducing cognitive errors. The author is taking humility completely out of the realm of moral virtue and placing it squarely into the realm of practical life strategy. It is literally an active tool to make you sharper, smarter, and way more accurate. And that perfectly defines what a life methodologist actually is. It's someone who accepts that human perception is fundamentally flawed, but instead of just giving up, they research the very methods of thinking to navigate around those flaws. The goal isn't to live a flawless, error-free life, because honestly, that's impossible. The goal is to actively reduce the devastating impact of our inevitable cognitive discrepancies. So I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought. Think about a conflict you're having right now in your own life. How will recognizing your own inside and outside discrepancies change your life design today? If you start applying this SOP methodology to your relationships, your work, and even your self-image, I guarantee the results will be completely transformative. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.